Hi, welcome to The Outlet with Mack and Drew. This is episode number 5. And tonight we're going to be covering Trump. We're going to
Trump.
try to give you a little bit different perspective on the rise and projected fall of Donald Trump. So let's begin going back to the start of this presidential race in which I think the prevailing thought was you're going to have Hillary Clinton versus Jeb Bush or another establishment Republican, and most Americans were so disgusted they didn't want to hear anything about it because, what families in America were hated more than the Bush and the Clintons?
Mm-hmm.
We've
The
both
two
been through a
royal
bunch of,
families.
yeah, terrible, awful years of them.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Both with proven long criminal records. Both of them.
yeah, absolutely. Neither one of them really is loyal to either party. They're loyal to big business interest, the biggest business interest in the world generally.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of ties to the CIA and a lot of covert operations there, but that's not the idea of this talk. So let's start with Andrew on when you first found out about Trump running for president. What were you thinking?
I thought it was a total joke.
Yeah, me
I
too.
I was so disgusted and turned off. I mean, I followed the last 3 or 4 presidential campaigns pretty closely. Got Ron Paul really turned me on to actually watching what unfolds. Just watching his first run in 2008. But anyway, when I saw Trump running, I thought it was just another joke. He looked just like another shill candidate up there, regardless of whether he's a red or blue candidate.
Yes, I'm trying to think back, before he announced his candidacy and what, because he was this celebrity billionaire, supposed business mogul, business icon, kind of, sort of, who, made billions in real estate and who was famous for having kind of saying ridiculous things. He had that Apprentice TV show. I never really watched it, but you hear about stuff like that.
Mhm.
He was like a celebrity.
He's he's definitely a force that's been built by the media. I
Yeah,
don't think that Trump would have even been able to run for president with a tan like that and a hairdo like that if he hadn't already been a celebrity. And
yeah.
businessmen like that don't become just celebrities because they're businessmen. That he's a product of the mainstream media, I would say.
Yeah, it's a rarity for such a business icon to go into the public light like that. There's not a whole lot of examples. You maybe have like someone like Mark Cuban who likes the spotlight with his basketball team or something, but you don't see a lot of people who've made billions in a private sector go into entertainment or run a TV show. So that was kind of strange.
I can say that I think everybody was kind of turned off of Trump
No,
initially.
nobody liked him. People thought it was
Uh,
entertaining, I think.
the mainstream news networks did not have to try very hard to demonize him. He pretty
No.
much, that was the air that he brought on with him when he ran. That was what everyone
He
naturally
started
thought.
talking about the wall. Wasn't that his first thing that started riling people up?
Yeah. But I think one thing that is true about Trump is that he is an expert negotiator. And
Yeah, he seems to know what people want and how to manipulate them.
yes, whether that's used for good or bad is, I think, really yet to be proven. But he handled himself really well in those debates, and I
He
think
did.
basically brought all types of discredit to the rest of the candidates just by comparison.
Yeah.
Just because of the way he talked, his total refusal to acknowledge this PC culture.
Yeah, so there'd been this kind of, of the established candidates, what we think of as presidential is this very stoic, very calm, very scripted, these speeches that they give, these arguments that they give. They're never very, you won't hear them say something new or unique. It's usually something that's been said for a long time, and the idea of presidential, I would say, is very calm and collected, and he certainly broke that, and a lot of people didn't like that, but a lot of people were drawn to it as well.
Right. Regardless of what that people were claiming he was saying, they just liked that the guy was speaking his mind. I mean,
Yeah,
South Park made some awesome episodes, portraying that perfectly. Or just like a guy that speaks his mind,
I
and
think the
he'd
people
say,
were.
no, don't vote for me. You should not vote for me. That guy really speaks his mind. I really like that. So I think there was a little bit of that in the beginning because he started off I think one of the first things he started talking about was building the wall.
Yeah,
It's, as much as I think border security is really important, that's not a good way to. That's a good way to polarize people
he
politically.
is like the most polarizing figure ever in politics in America and history. I think
Hmm.
it was like people. He really turned a lot of people off. That's what the media and every establishment candidate the whole time was against him.
Right.
Despite that, people flocked to him.
Exactly. And it's I think I'd say in my mind it's amazing that he won the Republican primary, but when you look at who he ran against, it's not that amazing. It's probably pretty easy for him. I don't think he tried that hard to win the primary. I think he had it in the bag.
Yeah, most of those candidates were pretty awful. Nobody wanted to see another Bush presidency.
Mm-hmm.
No, the Republicans hated. They ousted Jeb Bush so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
A few others like Cruz, and Rubio had some support.
Right. And I was a huge Ron Paul supporter when he ran, but I haven't felt the same type of connection with Rand Paul as he's been running, even though he's supports some similar ideas. He does not approach politics in the same fashion as
Yeah,
Ron Paul does. I think Ron Paul acknowledged that he would never win, and he really was there to just kind of change the debate, just to change the game.
yeah.
Get him
He's
talking
now there. He's trying to start a movement, a philosophical movement. That's
exactly.
because his Ron Paul Peace and Prosperity
Mhm.
outfit is aimed at starting a movement. Where I think Rand's very young for a politician. I think,
Sure.
and I
Yep.
think he's trying something different. I think we'll see him. I think get better over time.
I agree.
He has proposed a lot of great legislation that usually gets poo-pooed very quickly.
Unfortunately, yeah, and even on the other side, really surprised to not see Bernie Sanders win. Honestly,
Yeah, well, we kind of found out why that was with the email scandals. I mean, yeah, you had everybody our age was in support of Bernie,
hmm
pretty much, and even there's a lot of Republicans who would have voted for Bernie over any Republican,
hmm
just because at least the guy, even if he didn't like socialism, at least the guy seemed to be honest, seemed to
hmm
be bringing up real issues.
yeah, he's definitely a big proponent of the welfare state. I was definitely not a Bernie supporter. However, I think if Bernie ran against Trump, Bernie would have won.
Yeah, I think so too, for
which
sure.
which lends to the larger truth, I think, which is the most important thing to understand when people talk about Donald Trump winning. Donald Trump, the Russians helped Donald Trump win. It's like Donald Trump didn't so much win as Hillary lost. I
Yeah,
think that people are so fed up with the idea of Hillary being president that whoever was on the other side probably would have won either way. And Donald Trump had some really galvanizing comments and tact towards the end of his race. And if it
yeah.
weren't for WikiLeaks or the internet, with those combined forces, he just managed to overcome. But
Definitely, yeah. I think the Clintons' crimes had definitely had come back to bite him at this point. There's just with the advent of the internet and WikiLeaks, you couldn't deny it anymore that they were a force for evil in the world. They didn't care about the average American. They didn't believe in any of the Democratic Party ideals.
mm-hmm.
They weren't for actually redistributing the wealth to the poor people, just like the Republicans aren't for a limited government.
Right.
I think the whole United States has started to see that, and that's what led to candidates like Ron Paul, Bernie Sanders, and Donald Trump actually Donald Trump just won. I mean, something that Bernie and Ron Paul couldn't have done.
Right. That's exactly right.
But bringing up hacking in the election, I mean, so far the only evidence we've seen of hacking was done by the DNC themselves, and it actually, like we just said, probably cost them the race because Bernie probably wins the presidency if he wins the Democratic nomination, which it does appear that they, to some extent, stole from him.
I would agree. Yeah, that's the name of the game in this whole election is hacking, whether the mainstream media wants to say it was Russian hacking that led to Donald Trump winning. It was like, no. If there was any hacking that really, changed anything, you're right, the DNC. It was the DNC hack.
Yeah, and they're fairly responsible for Trump as well because in the WikiLeaks emails, the DNC was colluding with the mainstream media, and they wanted to promote Donald Trump in the Republican primary because they thought he'd be an easy target.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want guys like Rand Paul and Marco Rubio to win the Republican nomination, and
Mm-hmm.
then you see the mainstream media every night just dumps Trump after Trump tweet after Trump said this, Trump said that, over and over again, and that he was the only one who got any attention, basically.
Right. Yeah. You turn on cable news and you see all anti-Trump pick aparts, and then you see some piece on how great a Hillary rally was, and then you look up online and realize there was 50 people at the Hillary rally, and the stuff that Donald Trump was tweeting about was slightly taken out of context, and actually what he was saying was pretty compelling.
Yeah,
that seems to be the pattern the whole time.
Yeah, and Donald Trump says so many ridiculous things that it's easy to if you take the worst things he says and you promote those over and over again, it makes him sound like the worst villain the world's ever seen. Mm-hmm. When many of those things were taken out of context.
Only if you can conceal his opponent's crimes.
Right.
Because they don't compare at all. Anything he's even said doesn't compare to anything that the Clinton dynasty has done.
There's nothing tying Donald Trump to war crimes. There's a lot tying the Bush and Clinton crime families to actual war crimes, specifically in the Middle East and Africa.
Yeah, recently. And there's forces at work right now that are really trying to tie Donald Trump to sexual abuse or rape.
And so far, nothing has even come close to sticking with that.
Yeah, whatever happened to all those sex scandals that were popping up just shortly before the actual election?
It's interesting. They only popped up right after Donald Trump brought Bill Clinton's rape accusers to that press conference where
exactly.
They thought he was going to talk about Obama's birth certificate. Instead, he brings Jennifer Flowers and Juanita Broderick and maybe someone else up there who had legitimate cases against Bill Clinton.
Exactly.
Whose lives were ruined.
Yeah, call your enemy what you are. I mean, that seems to be the Machiavellian play out of the Clinton playbook.
Yeah, and Trump's he's an old guy, and just all of a sudden, all these cases come to light. That was the timing was a little odd. That and the way if they only come to light in the mainstream media and not through proper legal channels, that also makes you question what the goal of that was and what the motive was.
It shows that mainstream media is dead. It shows that that it's done. I mean, they obviously have an agenda to ruin Trump, and they're having to go back 12 years to some audio file that was thrown away in a trash can outside of a Schlotsky's or something, to dig up something to try to pin this guy. And that won't pin him against. It's obvious they're trying to come up with something. Gloria Allred is heading a new sexual assault case against Donald Trump. That was just announced today. That's today, Tuesday. Was it 3 days before the actual inauguration of the president? Where it was also leaked too, funny enough, that there are people planning on disrupting the Deploraball, which is the big, info warrior, Alex Jones-esque type get together, Trump supporting people. But there are videos out now where I think there's a Project Veritas that did these independent research where they got these videos of these people running these independent, so-called independent Democratic activists, committees where they're like, well, if you get, butyric acid, which is the acid that makes your vomit smell bad, and you get like 50 people, and you have them all put vials, and you have them all smash them at the same time near these air ducts, then they'll have to evacuate the deplorable, and they won't get anything accomplished. And it's like people were planning a revolt over Trump. He's not even in office yet. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it just shows, and this is what the mainstream.
It's all like character assassination with him.
It is. It's all ad hominem. It just shows that they've lost. Like it's one of those rules.
They have a lot to lose here, because if the Clinton and Bush's war crimes come to light, the mainstream media didn't question any of our war motives, basically going into Iraq and Afghanistan and like Syria and Libya recently. They just presented they presented the same stories that the White House was putting out. They brought military generals onto their shows, and it was largely them who convinced us that the war in Iraq was okay.
Mm-hmm.
Americans were heavily against it when they first proposed it, and after a month of heavy bombardment by generals on Fox, CNN, NBC, all of a sudden you have more than half support, and we go to war in Iraq. Some of the recent wars have been a little more covert, like specifically Libya.
No kidding. Yeah, Congress is a little inconvenient for the warmongers now.
Yeah, but that's where it's interesting to see all these. Trump is just constantly character attacked. It's a lot of it's little petty things. It doesn't have to do with what he would do as a president. It doesn't have anything to do with his policies he would make. It has to do more with how he makes people feel.
Exactly.
And that seems to be their whole angle.
Yeah. So the media creates Trump through their whole, The Apprentice. He was in movies too. I mean, this whole idea of who Trump is, his whole image was created by the media. And then now that he is running against the establishment candidate Hillary Clinton, they try to destroy him.
This has like Edward Bernays written all over it.
It does. But as they try to destroy him, they just through their own because they're so untrustworthy. It's become so apparent they're so untrustworthy. By trying to discredit him, people you're galvanizing support for Donald Trump. I think it was Hillary Clinton actually said in some press conference that she was demonizing by name Alex Jones and InfoWars. It's like what do you think you're doing? Like if you really don't
it gave him credibility.
Yeah, you just acknowledge. Yeah, exactly. So I think that as soon as Hillary starts saying InfoWars, Alex Jones, people go look that shit up. And then if you have her calling all of the Trump supporters deplorable, which far outnumbered even then her supporters, I believe.
Yeah.
Now you're just digging yourself into this giant hole, and then that on top of WikiLeaks. It's like there is no spinning the mainstream media can do to make this right. But do they think that? No, not at all. They're going for broke. They're still pushing the narrative. Even after Trump has won, they demonized Donald Trump so much at that very last debate. They asked him, if you lose the election, will you accept the election results regardless of the outcome? And he said, no, I'll look at them very carefully when they come out. And they really demonized him for just even insinuating.
And that's what any scientist, any like scientific-minded person would say, or any skeptical person would say, I'm going to wait to make a decision until it happens. And that's usually how you live your life.
They were trying to set him up, and then no matter how much spinning they tried to do, they still couldn't spin it their way. And it's almost like, I would say 75% of American society, it might be even higher than that around the world, but a lot of people are turning to internet for media solely.
And I think that brings up the whole Brexit thing. It's the media, the whole establishment told everybody, no, do not leave the UN, or not the UN, EU, and they did it anyway. I feel like there was a lot of similarities between Brexit and the Trump election.
Well, Nigel Farage, the spearheader of the Brexit, has been one of the biggest advisors to the Trump campaign.
Oh yeah.
So makes sense
Interesting.
that those two events are tied together for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, that's fascinating. It's like there's a big power struggle in the elite right now.
Yeah,
It's
and
like
I
Trump is bringing his own elite in, and
mhm.
this old established elite is not happy about it.
Yeah, the I wouldn't call the Trump movement the same as the Ron Paul revolution. I
Definitely
think
not. Yeah.
it's similar. I think it tracks a lot of the same people, but I think that what Trump has done, what it has ended up doing, is creating a worldwide liberty awakening,
Yeah. Hopefully.
regardless of the mainstream media spin. I mean, people from other countries are really paying attention to what's going on over here, especially, and a lot of people, a lot of leaders of other countries are jumping for joy that Trump won over
Yeah.
Hillary. I mean, they might thinking they might have just avoided, maybe even a nuclear war.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's an interesting point. Is as much as they demonized Trump, he looked. If you compared his, not that he has a war record, but with what he was saying about war, he was anti-war. If you compare him to Hillary, she was pushing for this whole involvement of Syria, same as the establishment Republicans. She's pushing this war rhetoric with Russia, and then you have Trump, who says the war in Iraq was a gigantic mistake.
Mm-hmm.
He's upset with how things have gone in Syria, and he wants to be friends with Russia and business partners, and he's being demonized for having ties to Russia when, I mean, come on guys, the Cold War's over, like we there's no point to it. There's no point to be enemies. I don't think there's any way Russia could outstrip us technologically or industrially right now. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
they're going to nuke us. I don't see how that would benefit them because we just nuke them.
Yeah, I don't see how that solves anything.
There's a lot of paradoxes with what the establishment has done
Mm-hmm.
recently. You have Obama with his Nobel Peace Prize, and he's playing up this war rhetoric with Russia and demonizing Trump for wanting to work with Russia.
Yeah, I think he's actually maintained a state of war since he took office.
Definitely, I think that's another thing that really woke Americans up. It's like, hey, we need to stop fighting these wars, and it's both the Democrats and the Republicans. You can't just blame Bush for all these wars because Obama followed it up with more wars in the Middle
And,
East
and Clinton continued it from a
from the
previous.
previous Bush, and from
Yeah,
going, and that takes us back into the Cold War with
yeah. I
Reagan.
mean,
And
it's business as usual, and the fact that mainstream media is flipping out and that people are organizing, protests against the already elected president at his inauguration. I think that is that is the whoever the powers that be trying to put Hillary Clinton in office. That is their swan call or their
yeah,
swan
and these
song.
protests are just they don't seem to be very. They're taking this like anger towards Trump, this fear, and they're only promoting more anger and fear. They're not promoting any. They're not protesting to say, "Hey, Trump, let's work with this." They're not trying to push a certain policy. They're just mad, and that doesn't get you anywhere in an argument.
Yeah, they're just causing division. I mean, they're not really promoting. You're right. They're not promoting anything except more violence and more division.
Yeah, it's beautiful. If you look back at like some MLK Day yesterday, it's beautiful to look back and look what black people marched for back then for civil rights. They did it peacefully. They were attacked for it, but now, if you're protesting against Trump, what are you actually? You're not really protesting anything. He hasn't even. I mean, if you want to have it to be a certain point, like I'm okay with that, but I would never be okay with protesting and causing anger, fear, and violence for no reason.
Right.
So I'm a little confused that people aren't really thinking this through. We should be trying to lobby Trump to end these wars. We should be lobbying Trump to to quit, to work with our Justice Department to quit unfairly punishing minority communities and quit jailing so many minorities for petty drug crimes.
Mm-hmm.
And those are things that we could really help the world with. If we just get angry and stuff, that's just mob mentality and isn't going to do us any good.
It is, and I think that's the key too. Is that um, if we don't get angry and we don't get violent, we still push the idea of either limited government or decentralization or whatever that is, power to the people, whatever that is. As long as you don't get violent, I think
Yeah.
you're going to be successful as long as you're
And a
persistent.
lot of these anti-Trump riots have been violent,
They have.
and that's kind of becoming a
They,
disturbing
they've
trend in
been
America
they
lately.
they have demonstrated the violence that was not experienced as so clearly explained by the accusers of Trump when he was running for president, claiming
Yeah.
the Trump protests were violent. They were not violent. The violence that you're seeing at these riots is that type of violence. It's this
Yeah.
like media generated violence.
And the mainstream media has definitely tried to get people to get angry and fearful of Trump.
Hmm.
Which, I mean, I think you should always be fearful of a powerful leader, but the whole anger issue, playing into those emotions and making you do something stupid, that to me is evil, and it's not something we should be promoting.
It
We
is.
should be promoting thought and
Mhm.
smart action.
Yeah. Just turn off your television.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have done that.
Mhm.
They're getting their
I,
news
I,
online.
I personally, I haven't had cable in like 7 years. And I don't miss it at all. And now
Yeah,
I get physically repulsed when I see mainstream. Like if I see CNN or Fox or MSNBC, like if we go out to a bar or something and see that up on the TV, I just can't watch it. It's
yeah.
gross.
I think that's a common theme, and I think that is something that definitely helped Trump get elected with the rise of the Drudge Report, and Infowars, and
Hmm.
WikiLeaks.
Yeah, Alex Jones and Roger Stone. Did you want to mention Roger Stone?
Yeah, I think that's something that I think most people aren't aware of Roger Stone unless you watch Infowars or something. Roger Stone's kind of a long time Republican pundit. He's made a lot of enemies, but he's worked in the establishment as well for a long time. So he's kind of an insider, but he's written some books recently that really pissed off some people. And when I tell you the titles, you'll know why. One of them was The Clintons' War on Women, and the other one was Jeb and the Bush crime family. So
Hmm.
you have Roger Stone, who's a longtime friend of Trump, and I think I don't know if you could call him an advisor. Um, I think they're definitely longtime friends, though.
Definitely.
So Stone writes these books just trashing the Clintons and the Bushes for being total tools of elite business,
Mhm.
not representing Republican or Democrats, not representing the average American. The one about the Clintons probably they're not even very professional. And the Bush family they're very professional crime lords. They go about their business um, very presidentially. They didn't get caught up in the scandals the Clintons did.
Hmm.
But regardless, I think Stone really caught a nerve with the mainstream when he published these books.
Definitely. Yeah, he's been involved in the past, I think, 8 or 9 election cycles, directly advising eventually who became the president.
Yeah, that's concerning. You got to wonder if Roger Stone is just
It is. It is a little.
just
It
trying to
is.
get Trump elected. But at the same time, when you read I've read the Jeb and the Bush crime family, and he goes really deep into very conspiratorial events and ties the Bush family into a lot of horrible things. And I do think my gut tells me that Roger Stone's work actually does scare the mainstream establishment candidates because he really tears into them. He's not afraid to go anywhere, and he makes them look like lying crooks.
Definitely, and that's one of the reasons they're so scared of him is because here's a guy who has real inside knowledge of what's going on behind the doors in these presidential races, what's really going on with these candidates. He has knowledge and history of the Bush family and the Clinton family,
Yeah,
both of whom were involved in this most recent election, and he sides with Trump.
yeah,
So he has all of the inside info. He's siding with one person that they really don't want to lose to. So I can understand why they hate Roger Stone so much.
yeah. I think that kind of brings the question of like, well, who is Trump and what is he trying to do? Because obviously what the mainstream media has told us about him doesn't seem very factual. But he doesn't seem like it's hard to. I don't. You'd be hard pressed to say, "Oh, Trump's a great guy." I've never ever heard anybody say that. he said a lot of disgusting things. He promoted a lot of ideals that are similar to fascism, but at the same time, he also promoted medical marijuana. He promoted gay marriage. He's been anti-war, but at the same time, then he talks about torture methods. So he's all over the place. You don't know what to think about him.
Mm-hmm. I think it's. I mean, hell, it's hard to know. Here's a guy who doesn't have any kind of political record.
Yeah.
We don't really know anything, which is really scary. And I think that might be part of the reason people are so pissed and scared about what's going to happen. As if changing the office of 1 to 15 people in a octopus of a government like we have will really change anything.
Right.
But I think that his not having a record and his being so wily is pretty disconcerting. But when you think about it, at least he's doing it outwardly, and he's not at least hiding that side of him, which is typically what a politician would do, I would say.
Yeah.
So as pissed as people get and as mad as people get, and as much as they want to protest, it's like let's wait and see what he actually does.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's obvious that after this recount was done, that more votes ended up going to Trump. And if you want to get into the hacking aspect of the election, there's actually evidence that the election was hacked in favor of Hillary Clinton instead of Donald Trump. So let's just assume that Donald Trump has a lot more supporters out there. I think there's not a lot of people. When you look at actual voter turnout, there was a pretty high voter turnout, but you're still talking about at least 30 or 40% of the population that don't vote.
Yeah, they're so disgusted by either side that they're not even willing to cast
I mean,
a vote.
that number is mind-blowing. That number is mind-blowing. So
yeah, you got to wonder how few of us would it take voting to delegitimize an election. If only 10 million Americans voted, could we even say that this was a legitimate election if 90% of us abstained?
Right.
90+% abstained.
If they voted for Hillary Clinton, then it would be a legitimate election.
Yeah.
According to CNN, that's how that works.
Yeah, all of a sudden they're saying, because of Russian hacking, this isn't a legitimate election, but we have hard evidence that the DNC did hack their own election to screw Bernie Sanders out of the nomination, and now we're saying the Russians did it, and there's no evidence of that coming out.
Yeah, if Democrats and Bernie and Hillary and Bernie Trump lovers and Trump haters were so concerned about hacking, then why didn't they throw their arms in the air when the DNC scandal came out and it showed that Bernie was being
Where were
wrong?
the protests then? It was like the people funding those protests didn't want that protest.
Yeah, there's your candidate. Why are you going to leave Bernie Sanders and then get behind Hillary Clinton? What a joke. What a sick joke. I mean, yeah, where is the outrage there? Because that was the chance. Bernie would have won, I think, against Trump.
Yeah.
But it seems so convenient that people want to just have, be outrageous and demonize Trump, whatever. That's fine, but
the mainstream has definitely pushed this ideal that the president is all powerful. They're our ruler, and that because Trump may not be what we consider presidential, that it may greatly influence our treatment of minorities and women. And that to me, I would never change how I treated someone based on who the president was. I don't put any stock into I think most of the presidents of the country have been total traitors to the average person.
I think anyone that takes that much stock in who the president is needs to reevaluate their priorities in life.
Yeah.
Because the president doesn't have an effect on your day-to-day life. If you believe that, then maybe you need to turn your TV off for a little while.
Yeah. Just like celebrities they shouldn't have an effect on your daily life, but the truth is they do greatly affect many people, probably even us. Mm-hmm. As much as we're trying not to let them, we're sitting here talking about this election because it does. The truth is it does affect us because it affects the people around us.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's sad to see that so many people are so down and think that they're going to be treated unfairly because of who's president, and I wholeheartedly disagree, and all I can do is continue to treat people with respect and smile at them, be friendly.
Yeah, totally. It does. I don't think it. When you boil it down, I don't think it really matters. But if there's anybody who's causing disruptions with the status quo. Whoever has been in office that's been controlling policy is manipulating the flags for war. Like it's war driven, and it seems like that machine is really pissed that Donald Trump is going to get into that seat, and that is at least comforting. That there is some turmoil and disruption in that system.
Yeah, for sure. The war machine is, it's a good way, I think, to wake yourself up to geopolitics and the world around you. Because, I mean, I guess, you say, well, why would I ever go to war? Why would I ever go fight? It's like, well, maybe if somebody attacked me or were a legitimate threat. But, the countries we've attacked lately are, not a legitimate threat at all. We're not talking about the Germans actively taking over Europe. We're talking about Saddam Hussein not increasing his territory, not increasing even his oil production or anything, not harboring terrorists, not having weapons of mass destruction, yet we still went and fought a war there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that people have gone, wait a second. These wars, these are like, business motives, these are geopolitical power motives. These do not represent the will of the people. Doesn't help the average person.
Yeah, I think war is an unjustified word for what we did over there. I think we went over there and murdered a bunch of civilians.
Genocide.
Genocide. Yeah, we murdered a bunch of civilians, and we're continuing to do it.
Yeah.
Unlawfully and without any sense of. It seems like one of my favorite Ron Paul words, blowback, without any sense of blowback or repercussions in that region.
Yeah, and no one's going to deny that Bush was a warmonger, but you have Obama who just set the record for arms sales to other countries from the U.S. In his presidential training. The mainstream media is not talking about that.
No,
but that if I think big things would happen if Trump is truly anti-war, like he's been saying. If we become friends with the Russians, that's going to shut down a lot of our military growth here. Although he has said he wants to keep funding it, so I don't see why that's an issue.
Mm-hmm.
But we may quit bombing all these other countries, which would be fantastic from a global perspective.
Definitely. I think the most interesting thing to me about this whole race so far up to today has been that whether you have a Republican government or a Democratic government in the United States, no matter if it's a Republican president or a Democratic president, whatever the establishment of the rule is, government never its arms of control never ever seem to retract. They only seem to extend, and the rate at which they extend to control your life seems to just change.
Definitely.
That is changing. He's not even in office, and he already has a plan together to repeal and replace Obamacare. He's already trying to repeal. This never, ever happens. I've never seen anything like this happen before, where somebody rips something away so quickly, like Obama. I mean, nothing's really happened like this before, but this is a policy that hasn't really been.
You have to go back. You have to go back hundreds of years to. I think maybe of the repeal of the first centralized bank in the country, or maybe the founding of America, period, and breaking off of. You're right though. We haven't seen anything like this at all. And then you got to wonder what will happen with the Patriot Act, because that was a big invasion of privacy that Bush, a so-called Republican, put forward that Obama continued. Yeah, it's like they keep laying on all these more levels of control on us every president for a different reason each time.
Definitely.
It was and this Russians seems like a while back, then it's terrorist and
right. First time in recent memory I can think of where some kind of government policy is being just turned over.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen ever. I can't think of any time that's ever happened.
I mean, this is kind of right before we were born, but from Jimmy Carter to Reagan, I think Reagan that was more like some business interest that Reagan did overturn a few things, but it's not like Reagan was certainly not a proponent of limited government by any means.
Right. And speaking to that effect, I remember when the Brady assault rifle ban was lifted, but that was not a huge.
It was a minor, very minor.
It's very minor. We're talking about what Obama would claim as his legacy.
Yeah, Obamacare was a
That,
socialized medicine in America is a big deal.
and the first thing Trump is going to do when he gets in is turn it over.
Yeah,
It's obviously failed. Before he's even gotten out of office, the premiums in some states have risen over 200%,
it's insane.
and access to care has decreased. You can only go to certain doctors at certain facilities that are opting into this program. People are
Yeah,
into sort of alternative means of finding medicine, and it's creating this whole new choked, bastardized version of a marketplace where people, buy, sell, and trade the little chops that are left after the government skims everything off of the
and I
top.
think it was if you really generalize it, it's kind of an example of government stepping in and controlling over only one side of the market, in which we couldn't lessen the cost of patented prescription drugs or something like that.
Right.
We were just like forced to pay these exorbitant prices. There wasn't like another, there's no negotiation in price when you're not the one paying for it.
Exactly. Yeah, there is some sort of scam going on between government, hospitals, and insurance, and I think that more or less
And the
takes
and
place
big pharma
at the
companies,
state
yes.
level, but big insurance and big government are in it together too.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
and you can make the argument that if you had much stricter government control that limited how much profit you could make, I guess, maybe we could pay a lot less for these drugs, but then, those companies wouldn't be able to do research to come up with more drugs.
yeah, and then if you create
There's a
laws where
lot
you
of
say you can't only
possible
make
negatives
so
there.
much profit, then you'll create a shortage. That's like controlling the supply. So really, just their
Yeah.
intervention at all is kind of bad.
Yeah, and there was this during this election cycle, you definitely had a strong promotion of, socialism in America, which is
Hmm.
kind of a newer age thing that, certainly the advent of Obama and Bernie Sanders definitely were ramping into more government takeovers. And you got to wonder what they were using Bernie for, because obviously the DNC never intended to let him win the nomination.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
almost like they were using
obviously.
him to gain support for these socialist
Yeah.
ideals here.
Yeah, and so funny to witness the reluctancy of the Bernie supporters to get behind Hillary and support her.
Yeah, because she was, everything Bernie was saying, she would try to ride his
Yeah.
coattails, but she's been the whole time she's been in the pocket of all these big businesses and protecting them.
Yep, she's part of the political elite ruling class, or at least she puts off that vibe where she's beholden to those people.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that will conclude our first video on Trump Nation tonight, and we'll have to do another one on some of his cabinet picks and keep updating as he goes along, and see what happens. Will we all riot? Will we go into nuclear war? Will they release all the Russian hacking and not let him be president, or are they gonna kill him? Who knows? There could be a lot of big things could happen here in the near future.
Yeah,
Or we could just all continue living peacefully.
everybody just stay home and drink wine and hang out with your friends.
All right. I think that'll do it. Right as I about run out of space on my computer.